Let's do this! Hey, what's up? Welcome to the channel. So, here's the thing. Xenoblade 3 just came out. And I've been very, very excited for Xenoblade 3. As you may or may not know about me. And I have a little bit of a problem. I cannot play Xenoblade 3 on this channel. I can play it on my own time, but I don't possess a capture card. So while I'd love to share my experiences and first time reactions by like streaming the game or something along those lines, I cannot. So in my brain of brains, I came up with a very smart solution, and that's basically what this is. I've basically decided that I'm going to play through this game chapter by chapter, and then release a big old vlog-ish review kind of thing, right? Where I go over what my experiences and my first impressions of each chapter are. Now, in doing this, I am kind of putting myself out there, so I really ask that if you have played past this point, you do not speak about anything that is past a certain point, because all I'm doing is playing up to a certain point, making a vlog, then continuing to play. In fact, I've actually made little notes on everything while I was playing the game, like I'm a proper reviewer. In fact, I actually plan to make a review at some point after I finish like a New Game Plus playthrough way in the future. But in any case, the main point is that by doing this chapter by chapter and releasing these videos in between my playthrough, I don't know what is coming, so I really must ask you, with all of my heart, do not spoil the game for me. At least, don't talk about anything in the chat that doesn't correlate to the stuff that I've said, like the chapter I happen to be on. That being said, of course, I won't spoil anything past the chapters. There's going to be spoilers for the chapters I've listed here, which, as you can see in this video, is chapter 1 and chapter 2, because I thought I might as well do both of them at the same time, because I wouldn't be able to just do the first one and then just stop. Especially since, I figured the first chapter would be a little shorter, and I'd also want to push through to get through all the tutorial stuff by the second chapter. And for the most part, I think I was right. Honestly, it's a little questionable. In any case, I'm doing those two chapters here, so just don't spoil anything past that point. And I won't, of course, because I don't know anything past this point. I will also be talking about a little bit of theories here and there. I'm not really, again, solid on anything, mind you. Of course, I only know what I've seen so far. So, if you don't like theorizing or anything like that, or you just want to, experience things as they come and not really think about it, then I understand if you tap out. Okay, before we go on, the next point I want to go to is just, certain things that I can talk about that aren't spoilers, really, just, gameplay impressions, what I think about, general thoughts, and then after this, anybody who doesn't want to be spoiled, you can hit the vote and come back later when you're done. So, what are my overall thoughts on the game? Right now, I really like it. I will say that right off the bat. The gameplay is really fun, really satisfying. I like the combo system, the way that you can position your, the AoE buffs, stuff like that. It's really fluid and intuitive, and I think that it gets on its feet really quickly and just keeps going. It just gets more complex as it is already there, but the basics, the satisfying parts of combat are immediately available to you, and that is extraordinarily helpful, because often games in this series will take a very long time to get to the point where you can really enjoy the combat, and I think that was really a big problem, especially in Xenoblade 2. And also, speaking of things that Xenoblade 2 did questionably, this game has, by far, out of the three games, the best tutorial out of all of these games. It's absolutely the best tutorial. It's streamlined, it's very comprehensive. Things are just introduced gradually over it, but it doesn't feel like it's breaking the pace too much. Everything's really understandable. I don't know. They keep these things. They keep rolling out new mechanics and tutorials as things go on, and it's at a nice steady pace. So I'll say that. And you also have things like the tips menu. We can go back and reread a lot of these, which Xenoblade 2 didn't have. And neither did Xenoblade... Actually, no, Xenoblade 1 did have that. Xenoblade 2 didn't have it for some reason. And there's also like these like training missions where you can like go in and like relearn the things on your feet in like these little VR mission kind of things, which is really good. So that's another plus in terms of gameplay. I need to stress this. The previous 2 games kind of suck when it came to tutorials. Like, Xenoblade 1 is decent, and you could always go back and, like, review certain things, but the reality is that often, like, in Xenoblade 1, you will just get a big tutorial that, like, teaches you something in the middle of a really impactful scene, and you're just like, shit, I don't remember. Like, it's, I feel like, especially when watching a lot of other people play it, it's hard. Like, I can tell that they're not quite getting it. And, like, certain things just, like, slip through the cracks. But this game, I don't think, has that problem. And Xenoblade 2, my god. Xenoblade 2 would literally flood you with tutorials every single, like, 5 minutes. At least for, like, the first 2 or 3 chapters. And then, of course, periodically throughout the rest of the game will also still hit you with tutorials. And yet, wildly enough, teaches you jack shit through those tutorials. It doesn't teach you a damn thing. And yet, there's so many of them. Xenoblade 2 will literally have the same amount of tutorials as this game, except you learn, like, a fourth of the information that you do in this game. It's crazy. Like, the tutorials in this game are short, and you get so much information out of them. The ones in Xenoblade 2 are long, and you get, like, nothing. And they lie to you, like, crazy. This game is a lot better about conveying information. I know I've waxed on about this point. I'm gonna move on. So, next thing, music. Oh, the music's so good. I mean, it's not really much of a surprise if you played the other 2 games, or even just listen to the soundtracks. They're fantastic. But this game's going stupid with the music. Like, here's the thing, when I first heard some of like the pre-release music, I wasn't feeling it as much, especially since I had like just recently finished Xenoblade 2 like a month ago, and like I was hearing a lot of the songs, and like a lot of them have like little tiny references, like the battle theme references certain like leitmotifs or like little phrases from like previous battle themes, and like I was worried that like the entire soundtrack would be like that, where it's just kind of like bootleg versions of other songs and I'd get annoyed by it. But like in the actual game, I barely even noticed the references, and like I really have like grown a lot of the themes that I was like have grown on me, and like there's also a ton of music that just does not have that at all, and it's fantastic so far, especially certain tracks which we'll talk about when we get to like spoiler talk. Another thing, I think like the game looks fantastic. It really, like, the art style has come a long way, I think, especially when compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2. It's really quite good the entire time. Like, the vistas, everything, the art design, it's great. I love that. I really enjoy the characters as well. I think, so far, they have, like, really believable chemistry, and they're really interesting, and the main overall story is very, very intriguing, and also, like, captivating very early on. And they know how to pace things, and it feels like there's nothing being wasted. You just immediately are engaged, and I find that quite enjoyable. Anyways, that is all I have to say in terms of non-spoiler stuff. From here on out, I'm basically just going to like go into my notes and review how I felt about certain story beats in the chapter, in the like story itself, and also maybe some mechanical stuff. But yeah. This is the spoiler section. Be gone, you non-spoilery people. Alright, so like off the top of the game, my first impression was I kind of don't like the title screen. And I was wondering if it was like a Xenoblade 2 situation where it like change every chapter. It actually doesn't. It seems to be the same every time. I'm not a fan of it. Mostly because I think it's like really static, weirdly. I like the music. The music on the title screen is amazing. In fact, I even thought to myself while listening to it, especially since it's so like piano, like I was like, I would very much enjoy like seeing a live performance of this, like being in the room and just listening like to this being played on a piano, because it already felt really live. Like it had that very like authentic live instrumental vibe to it, and I was like, woo, that stands out. But yeah, okay, there's that there. Like, I think the actual title screen itself it's just the damaged Orion Titan and the Makana sword, which is impactful if you know what those are, but like like compared to the first game, which has possibly one of the most iconic title screens of all time, with the Monado and like the Mechon armor and like the Mechonis in the background and the grass, and like it has a day and night cycle with the music, like that is still the best one in the series. And then there's also Xenoblade 2, which has like the chapter by chapter different title screens, and all of those are fantastic too. I think this one is just a little, I would not mind the imagery if it was zoomed out a little bit more and there was like a better sense of scope, but it feels like very cramped and like nothing is really happening, even though it still does that thing where like it doesn't immediately load up. That being said, like it's not a big deal. It's a very minor critique. I didn't really feel anything about it, but I think once I realized like it doesn't change, I was very disappointed. I was like, whatever. But anyways, like once you actually start up the game, for one, the audio balance I had to fix ahead of time because I heard it was bad, and yep, I fixed it. It was good. A lot of the options that are available right off the bat are really like nice to have, like dual audio, being able to adjust like music volume, all kinds of things. There's just nice options. Anyways, story. So like the first cutscene is really, they did dive right into the crazy mindfuck shit, right? Because like you start off with the cutscene with Noah, right? With the clock, which is like, I thought was like fantastic, because that was just like the clock ticking. It was very ominous. But then you have like that element going through until it hits like the 12 dead midnight, and then like everything time stops, and then you see like the earth in the corner, which could be the Xenoblade 2 world actually, because of like how that works, and like everything slows down. And first theory already, like the first thing that came into my mind theory wise involving that whole setup is like, I don't know if the versions of the characters we see in that flashback in that scenario are the same as like the ones we're playing as. Like, I don't think that's Noah. Or at least I don't think that's the Noah. Mind you, there's a little bit of a contention with that, because there's a later scene in which like Uni seems to be remembering something from that time, even though she should only be like, she was only born like 8 years ago. Like, and there was also like a really nice transition at the end of the scene, which like kind of makes it ambiguous how much time has passed. But I think they're doing that on purpose. I think they're trying to mess with us, because like you see some things like Alchemoth, the OG Alchemoth is there, and also they're in Colony 9, I think, or at least like the rebuilt colony at the end of Xenoblade 1. Which are things you wouldn't notice unless you played it, but it's whatever. I don't think it'd make a difference. But you could see Alchemoth, and it looks like how it did before, which is really cool, honestly. If you play Future Connected, it's like, yes, I feel validated. I feel like what I did there makes sense. And like they talked about like the Queen's anniversary as well, so I don't know about that, but it's probably Melia, right? Like, I don't think it would make sense. Like, we see the Alchemoth in that flashback, and it's one way, and then you see the Alchemoth later on, and it's like super technologically altered to look different, and it's like there's clearly a big time discrepancy between those two things, which is what caught my eye off the bat. It's another reason why I just don't think that Noah is Noah, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially since everybody seems to be like test tube babies and have like little similarities to other characters that have existed before. I think it's like they're reusing the same kind of materials and then like rebuilding versions of the same people, which would kind of go with the fact that the world is called Ionios, which means like eternity or never ending or something like that. Anyways, so there was all of that, and there was like this world emerging kind of thing. There was like these two energies that came together, and then, like, that's what punched the hole into Araya, and like all along the floor. And we hear some more stuff about that in the chapter 2, but I'll get to that when we get to that. We're just in chapter 1. One of the things that I noticed like immediately is the cinematography is really strong in this game, like more so than previous games. Like Xenoblade 1 is it's pretty decent. It's nothing like super special, but like the game has really good beats. Like there's certain things that I remember all the time, like the prison island thing, or like when when Dunban and Metalface are fighting in Valak Mountain, and like they have that clash, and then it does like the sword fight thing where they're both standing there, and then the reaction happens. Like things like that I remember, but like overall, I don't think it was that crazy. Xenoblade 2 definitely stepped it up, but I also feel like Xenoblade 2 in some ways like got held back in certain ways. You know, like a lot of the choreo, either like what is happening isn't really brought any kind of attention. Like there's less beats in the fight. They are definitely happening, but it's like, I don't know. It feels like the focus of Xenoblade 2 cutscenes is always on the characters talking and less on the actual fight. Like there's no, like the story isn't told through the fight. The fight is just happening sometimes. That's how I felt about it sometimes. And a lot of like some of the choreography things are like visually interesting, but they're also very silly. Like there's that one scene at the end of chapter 1 where like Malos is spinning like a Beyblade at Pyra, and Pyra is just doing like 8 back springs to dodge it. It's ridiculous. It's funny. I like it, but it's just it's very ridiculous. But like I think in this game especially, some of these cutscenes, some of these fights are just crazy. They have such an impact. Like, oh my god. Like that moment where Uni has like the staff here and she's healing the soldiers, and then she like kicks her gun backwards and then like no looks and shoots 2 enemies behind her. Fucking cool as hell. Or even to skip a little ahead with Mio, and when Mio and Noah are fighting each other, and Noah has the fucking like he like figures out her fight pattern because it's the same. She fights with the same rhythm as the Agnian Offseeing song, and he recognizes that song because he's an Offseer himself. And then he has this moment where he's like 1, 2, he's like counting out the steps, and he's just standing there. And then when she cuts up to him, he just like, it's so cool, and it makes him look super smart. And it's a moment of action that's integrated with like what's going on. Like the actual fight itself is so important, and like they really. Like, there's some very impactful cinematography in terms of, like, how these fights... There's beats. That's the key point. That there's beats. There's times where it's just like, oh yeah, this is a moment where, like, something develops in this fight. You have him, like, having a download completed moment in which he figures out the way to beat her, and then he starts fighting back and just goes going crazy. And then there's a part where he tries to, like... He, like, realizes that the fight is stopped, and then, like, he has to try and, like... convince like them to stop fighting and stuff. Or even like the stuff that was happening with D, Mr. Mobius, and how he was doing his whole crazy thing as well. Like when he fought against Van Damme in the big mech. Like that's a crazy set piece, and the way he fought was sick. Like every step of that was just like super brutal and super fun. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. The cinematography is fantastic. Actually, even to jump a little bit further ahead to chapter 2, like some of the Ouroboros stuff, oh my god. Like when the lands Ouroboros like jumps up and just punches that Mobius to the ground and just has that impact, I'm like, ugh! It feels great. It feels great. The cinematography is really strong, and I think that actually contributes to like the very somber and brutal vibe of this world. Like it's uncaring, unflinching, and just grim, man. You have these kids just murdering each other relentlessly, ruthlessly. The fact that like you can see in like in one of the cutscenes after he offsends these fellas at the beginning, which is just a really nice thing he does. Noah being the one who's like sending off all the dead people. The fact that like the Kevis troops, like the guys who won, that Noah's a part of, who won the skirmish, just roll over the bodies of the Agnian troops from is that a fly? It's a spider. Oh. I'll leave him. We don't need to kill each other, and I also don't want to take him out of my room. So for the time being, you will be spared, Mr. Spider. Anyways, the fact that they just like roll over and starts like stepping on like the bodies of these fellas, like, sheesh, it's a cold world. And also like the fact that only Noah seems to have this like sense of like, this shit isn't right, and I think that's part of the reason why he became an Offseer as well. Like, he has this sense of empathy for the other side that nobody else has, and you can really tell that the others are very indoctrinated. Like, they drank the Kool-Aid heavy, which you can't blame them. They were literally born into this society in which you were encouraged to have extremely nationalist views, like our side versus their side, right? And they know nothing else but to kill other people. Like, they kill the Agnians so that you can live, and then live till you're 10, and then you die in front of the queen. Which to them, they think it's cool. They're like, oh my god, that guy got passed on. That's gonna be me. Lance literally sees a man get evaporated in front of a live audience, and he's like, bro, that's gotta be me. That's gonna be me. You better bet on that. I'm next. Sign me up. I want it. And he doesn't know any better. And he's like 12, equivalent of 12 years old. But he's like 2 years old when he's hearing this. Like, it's really messed up. I think actually the fight scene that they show you, like right after your first battle sequence, where you see like the young versions of the characters fighting in like a skirmish against like another group of kids. And they, like, all the things that they're doing, plus how young they sound, and, like, the things they're talking about, it's just very disturbing. Like, I'm just like, man, these are kids. Like, these are young people, and they're just engaging with this shit. It's really messed up, especially with, like, again, the cinematography. You see, like, Uni get hit, and, like, she's, like, breathing really heavy and, like, panicking. And then she gets healed back up, and she's like, I'm like, jeez, man, it's like scary. This shit is brutal as hell. And I think that really heavy tone is to this game's benefit. It's not as, I wouldn't say it's not as heavy as it is, but it balances like a sense of levity with the heaviness. You know, it's not just dourness. There is a hopeful message to this, with like breaking out of this and like fighting back and finding your future and stuff. It's just a really tragic setup, you know? I think I remember it was like an Ask the Developer, which is kind of like the new Iwata Asks, if you knew what those were, that Nintendo released in like a 3-part thing before the game came out. And notably, one of the things they brought up is that, like, the director, or the producer, Tetsuya Takahashi, who is also the one who did Xenogears and Xenosaga and all that, he's the father of the series. He's also the main writer, actually. He says basically that, like, this game he decided to take off the good, stop being a goody two-shoes and, like, go crazy. And I can see that, because this game is sad, bro. That's another thing I'll actually give points to, and I noticed about it, like, impressions wise, is that if like you had a problem with Xenoblade 2 in terms of like like the fan service and stuff, it's like this game is very respectful and like classy about how it does. Like, this, the litmus test for this is like there's a bath scene when you get right back to the colony. You go to go take a shower, of course, because like you've been out killing people all day. So you need to clean your body off, right? And like that scene is incredibly tactful. Like, there's no weird sexualization, there's no jokes about that kind of stuff. It's not like an anime bath scene. It's like a scene that just happens to be taking place in the bath. That being said, Lance's cock was totally out, and so was Uni. They didn't show you these things. There was a lot of fog censoring it all. But it's like a co-ed bath, which is crazy for one. And two, like they take that opportunity. I know I said Lance's cock was out. It was. He was naked, he walked over, and Noah's head was right in the way of his dick. It's fantastic. They don't bring any attention to the fact that they're naked. In fact, I don't think they care. Because it's like they're all military. They probably don't even have sex drives, considering they're born from like little pods that Melia shakes her wand to summon forth a person who's like 10 years old already, ready to get put out there and train for the glory of Kevs, right? Kevis. But yeah, I like the fact that they use that scene not for fan service, but instead to develop the characters. Like they go into like Noah's trauma, and the reason why he became an Offseer is because like he lost his friend, right? And then he was like immediately after that he became an Offseer. It's like and like everybody has a moment like that. You even learn more about Lance, who's been like really rough and tough, and like all the kids, like as I was going on this tangent with like how the kids were treating this whole thing, they don't understand why Noah is empathetic and wants to pass, like, to send off even the enemies. They say you shouldn't do that shit, and it's like they don't get it, but Noah does, right? But even with those guys who are being really hard, like Lance, you can see like where that's coming from. It's because of like the trauma of losing a friend. My guy, what was his name? Yorin, my dude. Oh my god, they really made me empathize with that kid. I knew he was toast because I saw it in the trailer, but like I empathized. I was like, damn, it's a sad situation that like we're dealing with here, and yet, like, even though he's like a really minor background character, you can feel that he had a lot of impact on, like, he used to just be one of the guys, like one of the team, and like he's no longer around. It had a huge impact on like everybody. That's good. Like, it feels like everything, there's nothing superfluous in this story. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of, like, it still has that Xenoblade like crypticness where it's like there's certain things that happen and you just have no idea what that means or what people are talking about at first. And I'm sure that it'll get cleared up later on, or like make perfect sense on a second playthrough, because that was true about every single Xenoblade game. Even too, like, a lot of things make more sense if you know the full context and go back for it, and then you're like, whoa, that means this. This character's talking about that. Oh my god. But like, I don't know, Xenoblade, like, this game is generally pretty straightforward. Like, I haven't found a situation where it's just like, man, I have no idea what this scene even means. Like, it feels very, like, straightforward. Something I found, like, really interesting, actually, is that, like, apparently they need to use their blades in order to take the energy for the flame clocks and stuff like that. Oh, and, like, the way that, like, the tattoos they have, like, actively show how much time they have. I actually thought that the, like, I figured that was, like, a way of marking it, because they mentioned it again in, like, the directed trailers, that, I figured that, like, the tattoo would grow or something. Like, it started as, like, one dot and then become more and more and more over time, because they did mention that in the trailer. But I didn't realize that it would be, it started off as bright red and then the color fades over time. This game is very British, for sure. Like, they say there's a lot of fun British slang here. Like, they go all in. You get the in it. Uni straight up calls Lance a Muppet. You're right, Muppet, Lance. It's fantastic. I love it. And yeah, there's already, like, a large amount of, like, variety in terms of accents already. Oh, and of course, can't talk about people's voice. The voice acting is actually quite fantastic, actually. Before I get ahead of myself. Voice acting is fantastic. I really like Noah's voice. I like Uni and Lance. Like, they have a really strong energy. Like, you can tell they're really rough around the edges and are very much balanced out by Noah's more level-headedness. The only thing I would say that, like, I kind of don't like, and maybe this is just a staple of the accent, and given what I've done with, like, dialogue work in the past, I kind of get it. It's that, like, Uni kind of has, like a slurred speech. Like, it kind of sounds like she's muffling her speech a little bit, which what do you mean? Like it, but then again, that's also literally probably just the accent. Honestly, it just sometimes it sounds a little silly. But then again, you know, British people are silly in general, even though they are not always silly. In any case, I really don't have any problem with the voice acting so far. I think it's really good overall. Here's the thing. I wouldn't say there's been a moment where I've been like blown away by some of the voice stuff like I did in one mainly from Shulk. But at the same time, I think it's closer in quality to one, and everything is so consistent. Like there's nobody going like, whoa, that voice acting was crazy. But also I'm like, this voice acting is fantastic and it's quite consistent. You know, there's nobody, it's not like a Xenoblade 2 situation where there's somebody who's very clearly not doing the best that they could, and then that just brings down the whole scene, because all I thinking of is yeah, like that just terrible scream from Rex or something, like, and it takes a while for it to get going. Like, no, this game just has great voice acting the whole time. And also, we have to talk about Riku. Riku is fantastic. I think he might actually be the best Nopon companion in the entire series, by far. And I like Ricky, don't get me wrong. I would probably put Ricky as second. But I think Ricky has less to do than Riku, and is just less impactful. And also his voice, the decision to make him have this bassy, deep man voice despite being a Nopon who says bum bum and speaks in broken English is fuego. He's even voiced by a black dude. That's fantastic. And he's also just a cool character. Like he's literally describes himself as the popular guy pawn. Fantastic. He's really serious too, and like has a great observations. He kind of has this mentor role, kind of a little bit. Like he's really tied into the story. I don't know. I like him. I really do. Like every time he's on screen or says something, I'm just like, yes, talk to me. Yep, he and Lance have a really Ricky and Ryan kind of relationship. Like it feels very in the same manner of it. But like, I'm just glad that he's around. And he's also a member of Noah's like direct team, so he stays around. He's also a hero later on if you like watch the direct. So like, he's gonna be in the party the whole time, and has been like it takes him a while to have his first line, but once he does, it's just I like him. Nana's also cool, but we'll talk about her later. There's also like a lot of quality of life improvements in this game. Like being able to mark all your stuff as used, put markers on the map, the menu shortcuts, which are great. Of course, I already talked about the tutorial menu. There's the screenshot mode, warnings when characters are in danger. The little arrow that like is above your thing that tells you which direction you are relative to the enemy, which is fantastic. That one's really helpful. The items are more like in Xenoblade 1, where like they're like item orbs, but like you can see what type they are, and they respawn really, really quickly. You can attack, you can fight while in the water. Banger, that's so good. Oh my god, it's just a lot of cool stuff. The menu theme is also fantastic, I must say. Just like reading off of my notes, that's something I remember. Like I think it might play a little too much because you go into your menu a lot and it like kind of resets the overworld music, but like I do really like it. It's fantastic. I could definitely just sit around and listen to that, or like play that in the back of a stream or something. Oh, like another thing I really like is like how like when you're exploring around the thing and like a party member might notice something and go over to like a point of interest on their own, and it makes it feel like they're really part of your party, like they're an individual. It's cool. Oh, and like another great thing, another quality of life thing is like the like they incentivize talking to people, which was in Xenoblade 1. It was also a thing, like there was incentive to speak to people. And I think also in Xenoblade 2, but they never specifically like indicate or show you this. Like if you talk to people, you get affinity, right? In Xenoblade 1, of course, they were added to the affinity chart, which I haven't unlocked yet, even though I'm in Chapter 2. I know it's in the game. I'm just surprised I haven't unlocked it yet. But, yeah, the affinity chart, they haven't quite, fully shown that. But, presumably that has to do with it. But, again, they give you affinity towards these places immediately. That's great. I think some of, the shops as well, you don't really have to buy a lot of things, from what I can tell. You don't buy new weapons or anything, it's just for accessories, and the accessories are pretty expensive, but a lot of it just kind of comes immediately, right? It's easy to sell things and get new amount. It's strange the economy of this game, actually, because in Xenoblade 2 there was all these different kinds of stores, mostly just so that you could buy pouch items, and a lot of it came down to you need a lot of money, but then you could get money really easily. And Xenoblade 1 is just a standard RPG. You always need to buy manuals for this or weapons and stuff like that. So of course you'd have to spend a lot of money. But this game doesn't, from what I see, the only thing you could spend money on is accessories or making materials with very specific places. And then you spend other resources on crafting gems or upgrading your guys or doing a thing. It's all I've seen so far. That's just my thoughts. Honestly, I think the first chapter was pretty in reflection, not that heavy on story. You really just kind of, you come back to the place, you have some time to meet the characters like Mwamba, the man who is 1 month away from retirement. The man who almost made it, Mwamba. You get to meet and get close to some of your characters. Then you go back. You have a little bit of time at the colony. It introduces you into quests and stuff. It never really feels all that intrusive. But then you just kind of walk your way over to the area, and then you get into the plot stuff, and it's crazy. An observation, Noah seems to be really, really depressed. There's. And I don't blame him, because, in-game, I feel I'm just constantly running into dead people. On top of the fact that there's literally a mechanic that you can just find dead corpses and send them off, it's there's dead people in cutscenes, dead people in just sitting around the place, people dying in the... Bro, I think this might be one of the largest kill counts off the top of the game. Just the game starts and just dead. So many named characters die in this one chapter. 4 of them in this one chapter just get murked. It's crazy. In fact, more than 4, actually. More than 4 named characters just get murdered in the first chapter. There's a ton of shit going on, bro. It's brutal. And I feel Noah is really... He's the only one who really sees how messed up it is. And he looks constantly tired, he has little bags under his eyes in his model, and he looks depressed. He really looks like he's just suffering. And he's probably we know he's likely traumatized from the death of Yorin and stuff. It's very interesting how a lot of these characters deal with grief and how that motivates them. Because that's also the thing perpetuating this cycle of violence between both sides, is that they're one told that this is the way the world works and this is how it should be, and then they're forced to experience the loss of their friends and family through these battles, and then they start to resent the opposite side and dehumanize them more and more, which is helpful for the people controlling this shit, because then it all works out. Now everybody hates each other and they're just gonna keep killing each other like animals. Not even like animals, they just... There's no empathy. But yeah, okay. When we get to the real big plot stuff, when we really get to the real plot stuff, is when you finally get to the area and they start fighting with the Agnes people over this one invisible ship that they for some reason knew, and they got this decree from the castle about. So they shoot down the invisible ship, and none other than Guernica Van Damme, which is this game's version of Van Damme, who's in every game, and also Zuo and Yu, who are references Xenoblade 2, which I hope they become the standard to show up alongside Van Damme all the time, if they aren't already, But Zero and you, they get mucked up, they're getting shot down. They're like these weird robots that kind of look like Xenogears-y, but also like Xenoblade 2 World Tree enemies. Like, just like these regular generic automaton mechs, and they're like this third party, and like both sides don't really know whether they're fighting each other. In fact, Noah really has this bad feeling the whole time, and then like they engage, and you have the big fight scene with Kevis Special Forces and the Agnian Special Forces, which we already talked about a little bit earlier, having really good choreography, but also just like really good conflict, I think, between the characters. Like, you get to see how these characters, like the characters' problems with one another, and the pairs where like they eventually become teammates, where they start and they're really clashed. I think Van Damme also is really like interesting because, one, like his entire existence raises questions. He's old, like very old, like he's wrinkled and he's like 60, and that's like crazy for them. Like like watching the trailer, that's what I thought too. Was like, man, this guy's old, and I didn't even really think about it. But like, these kids only live 10 years. This guy is definitely living longer than that. So I raised a lot of questions, and of course he's like he sees things the way that we, the audience, sees things. Like, this isn't how the world's supposed to be. This is messed up, and you guys have no reason to fight each other. Or at least you guys shouldn't be fighting each other when, like, you're essentially being told to fight me for no reason, and y'all just mocking each other because you hate each other. And of course, while he's just about to get through to them and tell them about the true enemy, Mr. Wild Ride himself, aka D, aka Mobius, pops up, and I love this guy. He has such a presence, bro. He has that metal face Malos energy, bro. That just, I am a shitty person. I'm an asshole, but I'm very charismatic, and I'm very much enjoying what I'm doing. And he just immediately comes in, kills, like, mortally wounds Van Damme, murders Mwamba and Hacked, just crushes them, and then starts talking shit. That's how I love that villain archetype. I think archetype. I feel like that is the defining factor about like the Xenoblade series in terms of villains. Like, if you do not have that kind of guy, I'm less interested. They're great. And I really like his attitude. Like, he's not quite like, he's closer to, I'd say he's like closer to like a Malos than a Metalface, but he's also a lot like Metalface. Like, I'd say he's more like Metalface in the I kill people off randomly, and I'm here and I enjoy being evil, but also like he's more in the know, I think, and he's also a lot more relaxed. Metalface had a chip on his shoulder. So we also learned from that Mobius and Ouroboros are like opposites and they hate each other. Oh, and it's an interesting thing, actually. We learned this. I'm gonna come back to this later, but like, we see right at the beginning of chapter 2 that D is fused with another one of the council members in order to make himself here, and that's just an interesting point because of something later. I'll get back to it. But anyways, like the Ouroboros fusion, when that happens, and like you get to hear all these like cutscenes and memories and stuff, you get to like realize certain things about Mio that continue to be present, like the fact that she lost somebody who is apparently Miana or something like that. That's her name. She was an Offseer, and like she taught Mio all about like being an Offseer and stuff. That's really cool, and I like that they like seamlessly integrated that. And of course, we've already been seeing things like Yorin and stuff on Noah's side, so we immediately make that association of how important these memories are. And oh my god, bro, the boss theme when you become an Ouroboros and fight, oh my god, that shit gives me chills. I was like, yo, it's time, let's go. It was fantastic. And also, after that boss is done and the Van Damme passes on, and the Offseer scene where like Mio starts playing a song and then Noah jumps in, and then you get to feel the two melodies interlinked towards each other. It's gorgeous. It's so beautiful. They did that super well. And, like, I think it goes even further when you realize that, like, these two melodies were specifically chosen to complement each other, and were even, like, they even made, like, replicas of, like, legit, authentic replicas of the flutes that they use in real life to record this stuff. It's just, like, Monolith Soft is firing on all cylinders. I don't think there's a single thing in this chapter that I dislike. I can name like 4 things that I disliked about this game so far, and even then, not huge. It's just like a little nitpicks. That was fantastic. I also like the fact that like the characters don't immediately become friends. Like they start off, they do, like, even after Van Damme told them to, like, you're gonna be hunted constantly, you should work together. They still leave their separate ways. They still don't like each other, and even though they don't kill each other like they planned on, you know, they don't immediately become friends until they're forced to team up. Like when they realize that both forces now hate them because D sent a big infinity bat symbol into the sky to tell everybody, "Hey, these niggas ain't to be trusted. Hate them, kill them." To speak about the characters a little briefly, I already brought up Riku and Noah to some extent. Also, just a little note, another thing about Riku that I really love is the fact that he gets entire camera shots dedicated just to him because he's so short. Fantastic. But anyways, to bring up other characters, like Mio seems interesting because from what I see so far, like, she didn't initially start to be as like thoughtful and insightful as she is now. Like, a lot of that is motivated by her relationship with Miyabi or Miyani, or whoever her name is, her off-seer, like, bestie. I think it's also really interesting that the relationship she has to her partners, it's not the same with Noah and Uni and Lance, who seem to all be like really like a tight-knit group, and Riku as well. It seems like a lot of those people a lot of her team are a lot more spread out. Like, her and Senna are roommates, but they're not like best friends that grew up together. And Taion also seems to be like entirely separate. Like, he's just helped them out a lot and is like a notable strategist. But I really like Taion. Taion's interesting. He's really smart. I think he kind of has the standoffish kind of nature, like, where he's really like thinking, but he's also like really considerate. He's like really thinking about everybody's like feelings and trying to pick the best possible route, and that's why he's kind of standoffish, is that he's always thinking about everybody else and like trying to be serious for the sake of like people's like well-being. It's interesting. I like him, and I think there's like a really good scene in chapter 2 with him and Noah, where Noah kind of recognizes that about him, where other people wouldn't, and he kind of gives him like a pat on the back and like points it out, and he's like, "Thanks." Like, it's just, that's one thing I will really give. I think the relationships between these characters, so far what I've seen, are handled really, really well. Like, these are very authentic relationships. They don't start off liking each other immediately. Like, the things that kind of, the way that their relationships develop around each other is very natural, gradual. It makes sense based not only on circumstances, but also like on the characters' personalities. I think they're really well defined. And also even just the relationships between like the characters who already like each other, know each other. Like, they all share a history and have reasons to trust each other, and, you know, they have a dynamic that really works. I think that this is one of the strongest points, and I think a part of that is also, again, from the interview, Takahashi mentioned that like none of these characters are specifically the main character. Like, obviously Noah is, and then Mio's probably like the protagonist, right? But like, I really actually agree with his take on the idea that like every character is equally valid in their story, while they're not all getting the same amount of screen time, more or less. But like, I feel like each of them are individuals with their own motivations and histories and all that stuff. Like, they feel of equal weight to one another, and that's doubled up by the ability to be able to control all of them. It's actually, I'll get to that actually, but yeah, no, I think like the interpersonal things are great. Like, Senna and Mimi's relationship are really nice. And Mio's, sorry. Of course, the main trio from Kevis is great. Tayon's cool. Like, and Manana's even really fun, also. And I like the fact that her and Riku just get along immediately. Like, there's never really any conflict between them. It's also really interesting, actually, now that I think about it, that I didn't bring up, but like that Napon, they don't have the eye clock thing, and they also don't seem to have the same life constrictions, because I don't think Riku's the same age as everybody else, because like Riku still has his deep voice even back when they're 12 in the flashback, as we learn. So like, I don't know. I think Napon are not bound by the flame clock, or like they don't have the same life expectancy, but yet they're still part of the different nations, and also separate. You know, I don't know what's going on with them. I hope there's like a side quest that like goes into that. It's interesting. Okay, to go back into gameplay a little bit, I do like the fact that the game like forces you to play as different characters in the first chapter. I think that's a really smart way of doing it, because in one way, like, again, this is just another testament to why the tutorials are so good. Like, you play as Noah for a lot of this, which it makes you like accustomed to the attacker type. But then, like, on the way out after the boss, you have to play as Uni, which makes you like get accustomed to healing. And then you switch over to the Agnes people, and then you play as Mio, and then like you have to learn about the defending. And I think that one encourages you to switch characters more often, since you're now accustomed to the 3 different roles you're going to have to play as, which is important because eventually you do have the option to switch characters on the fly, which feels really good, I might add. I'm getting into a little bit of chapter 2 stuff, but it's really nice to just be able to switch characters on the fly, because like, if there's ever a role that needs to be played, you can just do it yourself, and it's very helpful to be able to do that. Like, I find myself playing as healers a lot, because I just switch to them to make sure characters are still standing. And like, especially when you team that up with like the Ouroboros system and stuff like that, where like you really want to be able to build up certain things, or even things like role skills. Like, that mechanic's really cool too, where you like, if you play your role as an attacker or defender, you build up your talent gauge, and then you get to use your talent art, and that's just like super helpful to be able to do that yourself. And that also affects the Ouroboros as well. I don't know, I think that's a really good addition to like force you to play as other characters, because in the previous games, like, you could, and even in Xenoblade 1, like, I think it's like, I feel like it's like, that's a big part of the gameplay in Xenoblade 1, is switching between characters, because of how mechanically different a lot of these guys are. But the game never incentivizes you. You can play as Shulk the entire time, and the game will not punish you in any ways. Even though that also means you're not getting the full experience, really. And I think the best way to play that game is to just switch up your party all the time, and sometimes not have Shulk in your party. Like, just do different party compositions and like really get the most out of it. But it is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, that was a bit of a problem. They never incentivized it, because like you never had to switch off of Shulk unless like you happen to be in one of the few handful of situations where you don't have control of him or access to him. And then again, that's never incentivized. And same with Xenoblade 2 to some extent. Like, Rex has a lot of benefits late game that nobody else has, that you wouldn't want to switch off of him anyways. And he has a busted blade literally permanently linked to him at all times, in the form of Mithra. She's fantastic. And then you have like all kinds of extra shit on top of that. And also the fact that like, yeah, you still have to switch between characters and roles and stuff with the blade system, but like in terms of switching to controlling like Morag or something, you don't have to do that, you know? It's nice, but like, it's whatever. I don't know. It's just nice to have that. Some other things. I think the music in this game really sets the mood well. And like, there's like certain things, like there's like an ambient theme that switches into a battle theme during like really intense moments, and I think that's a really cool effect. It's not all the time, but it's nice. Like, it's the same theme, but it gets more intense, kind of like in a Fire Emblem kind of way. If you played any recent Fire Emblem games, they do that a lot. There's another thing, like the eyes of the soldiers are like the Mobiuses. Like, and we learn that more in chapter 2, like the way the council sees things is the same way the soldiers see things, which is also like deceiving them as to how things really are. So they're not really able to see that we're the good guys, and like everybody's against us now, right? Because we're Mobius, and they see us as these like shadow monsters, which actually had me with a little bit of a brain blast kind of situation. Because if everybody sees them that way, they kind of look like fog beasts, right? So if the queens also see them that way, there's a possibility that Melia, the reason why she's against us is because she sees us as a fog beast, and is seeing the Ouroboros as the same problem that she encountered in Future Connected, which she already had anxiety towards. I'm not saying anything. There's no way to know. Don't tell me, but you know, something to note. I think the little character intros were really, really interesting. Like, Noah's a compelling character. I really like that moment where he's like, "This is my passion," and he shows the flute the flute that he plays, and he's like, "Someday I wish to be able to play my own music instead of the ones that have just been endlessly drilled into me." And that's just such a nice moment, and you get to have that with every character where they talk about what their hobbies are and stuff. It's just very human. Like, it's a real intro, and it's really everybody trying to do their best. Oh, okay, there's also this, like, to talk about cryptic stuff, there was like this weird girl who took Van Damme's eye patch. I don't know what's going on there. There's the Ouroboros pod, which broke, and like, that was like shown separately. I really like that we get to, at the end of each chapter, that we get to hear Mio's diary and then like save over that as the end of the chapter. I don't think it's as impactful as like Xenoblade 2's, where like at the end of the chapter you'd have the chapter title like show up. Like, that in certain moments went stupid, but I think it's really nice, and it's a very different thing. That's pretty much everything from chapter 1. To go into chapter 2 stuff, like right off the bat we get like a flashback to the moment that, what was his name? I keep forgetting it. I don't know why I keep forgetting. I think it's because it's hard to say. Yorin, right? The moment that Yorin died, and we see lands like break down entirely, which is really interesting considering how much of like a stoic kind of badass tough guy he is nowadays. But like, it's all sprouting from this like really deep pain from, and like this emotional side of him from having lost a friend, you know? We also get to see that in that same section, they were saved by Ethel. And then, for one, Ethel's cool as hell, and actually more nice than you might think. Then, like, I thought she was gonna be like a big, annoying villain who keeps coming back again and again, but as it turns out, no, she's just cool. But like, she notices the sword. We also get that moment where we get to see all the council members talking, and I now know the name of the horned guy that we saw in the trailer. He's my throat is getting dry. Ugh. He's named Z. Like, everybody has letters, which makes me wonder if there's literally 25 of these fellows, but probably not. But like, they were talking about like the whole situation, Passage of Fate. They sent out K, who is like the round-headed dude who turns in like the big monster guy in the trailer again. It's actually funny how much of the trailer seems to only be from chapter 1 and 2, because like, I'm pretty sure everything I've seen is from that time, with some exceptions, like some of the stuff involving heroes later on and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of that's front-loaded, which is good, because it means there wasn't a lot of spoilers. But Ethel, during that cutscene, actually brings up that Noah's sword is different. Like, she's like, nice blade. And there was also, like, the fact that it was ringing in the presence of, like, the Ouroboros and the Ouroboros stone. In the presence of D as Mobius, right? And that's, like, a really interesting thing, like, this high-pitched ringing sound that keeps coming out of it. I don't know what that's about, but I think it's really quite important. Because we learn in the same chapter also that the sword is a special sword. It was actually made, interestingly enough, by Riku's master, who, I don't know if that's a Nopon or some other dude. Like, Riku definitely knows some shit that nobody else does. Like, he has a master who forged a super legit broken-ass magical sword called the Lucky Seven, as it's called, which is a fantastic name, bro. It's so cool. And it's actually stored inside. Like, if you look at everybody else's when they're in their sword class, and yeah, you unlock the ability to switch classes. I'll talk about that. But, like, when you look at everybody else in the sword class, their blades look exactly the same, except the hilt is different, right? And that's because Noah, who actually can wield the sword, and my king, Riku, pointed that shit out. He's like, you were just hiding. You don't have the conviction to fight. That's why you don't want to summon your blade. Bop, bop, bam. That's why you don't want to take this blade either. And then he gives him the sword for free. But, like, Noah actually has his own sword within the other sword. Like, within his blade. And that's why it has a different hilt than everybody else's. And it has this, like, reverberating effect. And, like, some people are noticing it's different. And that's cool. Lucky 7 is cool. Noah, in that same flashback, said that he actually renamed it. Based on somebody who, like, protected him or something, which I think is Ethel, but small correction, he didn't say that he named it after somebody who protected him. He said he named it after somebody, something that he misses, which is very, very, very vague. They didn't specify what the name was, so we're just gonna have to hear it, I guess. We learn a lot of things, like for one, there's like specific combinations of people, like who can become Ouroboros. It's not just anybody. Of course, it's Mio and Noah, but like Lance and Senna seem to be the ones that they can like intrinsically tell that. And same with Uni and Tyon, who don't like each other at all. Like Lance and Senna seem to get along very easily because they're both meatheads who like working out. Like they're like stretching and trying to fuse together. And like that's also the moment where we learn that Ouroboros is like the will to protect and strong desires is what causes that to happen. And you can see that when they eventually unlock it, which is cool. We are done with the killing. Love that. We unlock switching, which is super cool. And also job classes, which is really also very cool. It's interesting to me that the first initial master skill is unlocked for every class. That means you don't really actually have to do that much work if you want to be able to have a certain amount of master classes and master arts available, as well as master skills. No, master skills you have to work for it, but the master arts you don't. And like you only have to unlock 2, and it like the cap right now is only rank 10. Like for like your class, you can only get to rank 10, including the one you start with, which is already automatically rank 10, which is interesting to me because it means at some point you're gonna go back to some of these classes, right? I think I'm also in a situation where like I'm really hoping that I get some more classes because right now like I'm just gonna end up switching around to everybody at some point because I feel like I need to have 2 of every role, definitely, especially when it comes to like certain ones. Like probably attackers are probably the least important because they made healers super important in this game. This is actually a really big gameplay change they made, is that they made it so that only healers can revive. Like there's no longer reviving is no longer tied to the party gauge, which isn't even really a thing anymore, I guess, because there's a chain attack gauge, but like it's no longer tied to the party gauge. So like the only way to revive is if you have a healer, which is like super duper important. So like obviously you need a healer, and healers also just don't heal as much as they previously did. Like Charlotte doing a group heal in Xenoblade 1 will heal everybody, like almost to full. Same goes with things like healing specials or just like healing blades. They usually heal your whole party back to max if they got something like healing halo off on you. But in Xenoblade 3, you don't heal that much unless it's like a regen area or something. With that, you heal like a ton. Actually, you heal like the amount of healing you get from a healing art every second. It's so good. But like you have to build up to that talent art, you know? And like healers aren't very smart, so you basically have to play as them a lot of the times. I think this chapter is where the gameplay mechanics really excited to come out, because of course you have the class changing is one thing. You learn about like gem crafting, which is interesting that like you make the gems are not like consumable items that one person has on their stuff, like materia. It's like you make one gem and everybody can equip the gem. Even 2 copies of the same gem, even though, like, functionally, it's like a perk system. Like, you can have so many gems on a person at any time. But, like, the actual gems can be equipped to anybody. Like, if you have one level 1, I don't know what they're called, like, attack plus gem. That attack plus gem could be equipped on every member of your party without, like, needing to make another one. In fact, you can't make 2 of the same, which is interesting. And then you have things like Nopon coins, which are really interesting as well. I feel like they're really important. Like, you need to just hoard those things, because, like, you can level up your classes using Nopon coins. That's crazy, and probably going to be really big handy later on. And then you can, like, use it to, like, bypass the needs for cooking or making gems and stuff like that. It's going to be very, very important, I can tell. And then there's also cooking, which is just... It's not as complicated as it was in Torna, but it feels like it has a similar kind of application. As well as campsites. I feel like they streamlined it from Torna, where, like, in Torna, it was just, like, build a bunch of different options to build pouch items, and then also, like get the effects of, like, deeds from the main game. Meanwhile, here it's, like, just for upgrading stuff. You also unlock Ouroboros properly, and, like, the mechanics involving that, including, like, the skill tree, and also the ability to, like, level up your Ouroboros while you fight, and then also switch to them. I like that they're available off the bat, but then, like, there's benefits to, like, waiting a little bit to unleash it when you really need it. Because, like, certain skills don't, like, have the added effect unless you've leveled up your Ouroboros beforehand and switched into them. That's great. Also, chain attacks. Chain attacks are rad in this game. I really like them. They're a lot closer to Xenoblade 1's chain attacks, but they're also totally unique. Like, the mechanics are about, like, building up points in order to get extra rounds, and, like, the orders you can give to, like, affect them, and the music that plays when the music that plays when you're in a chain attack goes crazy. It's so good. It's just, it's very fun. Very fun. Very fun game so far, honestly. I've mentioned that there was a handful of things I didn't like. I encountered a glitch where, like, I called people towards me, and then they just kind of I couldn't disperse them. Like, I gave the tactic to one towards me to get into the healing ring, but then I couldn't get anybody to attack again, so I just lost, which was shitty, but... It is what it is. That's probably going to get patched out. And of course, I said I didn't like the title screen. They mentioned something really interesting in the desert area, which has great music, of course. And is just a nice, really nice second, I guess third area. Oh my god, I almost didn't bring this up. I'm actually upset. Now I remember talking about areas. Milik Meadows, where you see the giant monkey, except it's not the same giant monkey. That was not Territorial Rotbug. This is not. That is not Solid Snake. I better see him. He better be in this game. I'm okay with there being another giant monkey, but that was not my giant monkey. That was not a territorial fella. He better be in the same forest that the immovable Gonzalez is in. Because I know Gonzalez is in this game, and they reference him a lot. But if Rotbart's not in this game, throw the whole game out. I don't want it. It gets a 0 out of 10 out of me if that's the case. Anyways, like I was saying, when in the desert area, they mentioned something about annihilation events, which happens to be, like, the thing that... I assume the annihilation events is what's, like, causing giant swathes of the earth to just disappear, like the hole in Araya. Which I think ties back to what Noah said in the beginning of chapter 1, where he's like, it's ironic that the world's called eternity because it happens to be dying, though we didn't know that at the time. Is that what, like, annihilation events is happening? I'm not sure if this is real science, but not Xenoblade, Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward, has, like, talks about annihilation energy, which is basically what, like, an energy source that's produced when matter and dark matter collide. And it's, like, a huge, just obliterating explosion, right? And I think that might be something similar going on here, like if the worlds are coming together and colliding, maybe that's what's causing these annihilation events to happen. Apparently they're just, like, a common thing that happen, right? I think it has something to do with, like, the world dying, like that's what it really means, but we haven't seen it yet. and it hasn't been given that much of a focus so far, but it is clearly a thing. I think the game also has kind of a chill energy to it so far, and a lot of that comes from like the relationships, the way they're developing. And that moment where they go to the oasis and like they chill out and have this like that conversation I mentioned with Noah and Tyon is really just really indicates that kind of like relaxed, natural feel. It feels very mature, very, I don't know. It's just good vibes. Also, I wrote that Tyon is the group's protector. He's super serious. He's really smart. He always looks out for each other and tries to find like the safest for everybody and tries to find the safest route. I like him a lot so far. I like also that the win quotes for battles start to change as like the relationships between the characters get better. Oh, and to talk about chain attacks again, the roll perks, that's really cool. Like that, the strategy in trying to maximize your point amounts so that you can like do even more damage with your chain attack and get more and more rounds added on and having more characters in it while you do it. Cool. I feel like I haven't fully unlocked that mechanic, but it is there. I guess past that, the climax of the chapter is like Colony 4, which are like a dirt poor colony that used to be like really high up there because of Ethel. They get visited by the council member, K is what his name is, and like they like attack our group, and like it's crazy. Like they bring the whole Varanus and it just breaks through like this big ass mountain. It's crazy. Like we're surrounded, have to go into the cave. Oh, that actually reminds me, something I didn't bring up is these black fog things. Like everybody has these irises that allow them to like interface with the world and like get commands and see stuff, but like there's this black fog that like interrupts their connection with the irises, so they can't like get instructions or like be connected to the grid or any of that stuff. And it's also partially what like allows Ethel to break out of like this thing where she's like seeing everybody as like these foggy monster versions of themselves, right? And I wonder what this stuff is, because it seems to be popping up at really convenient times, you know? I wonder if like there's a force controlling them, or like what is causing this black fog to exist, because it seems like it only pops up in inconvenient times for the bad guys. It's so useful for us, but it's never useful for them. I just wonder what it is. But yeah, no, they roll up on us and try to kill us, thinking, like, we try to talk to them, it doesn't work, because they think we're monsters. And of course I had my little theory about that. The counselors can also, like, they can see us properly, but they can also, like, see through walls and stuff because we're, like, marked as different. And, like, we have this whole moment where we have the fight against Ethel, and we beat her, and then we have to fight against Kay, and, oh, that fight. Bro, the choreography again, and that fight goes stupid. I mentioned this earlier, but that moment where Lance and Senna fuse, and then and he just pops up on the opposite side of the big old dust cloud and just binks him in the head. Fantastic. That boss fight was really fun. I think I actually lost it the first time, but I managed to pull it through. I think this game's challenge overall has been pretty consistently good. Like, I'm sure I could overlevel myself a little bit with quests and things, but like for the most part, yeah, I've been solidly challenged. I'm glad I didn't pick hard mode, because I'm certain I would lose some of these fights. It feels like it would take like the strongest amount of knowledge of this game to be able to like really do that, right? We also learned that the flame clocks are the things that are binding people, like the soldiers, to either faction and making them have to fight and stuff. But like if you can break the flame clocks. Well, you can't break them actually. They're pretty much indestructible, which is why where Lucky 7 comes in and it just chops right through it like it's nothing, because it's just ridiculous. And also the weird arm thing, I don't know what that's about. We'll figure out as time goes on. But like if they destroy that, then like everybody in the colony is free, and also the Mobius guys, they can use that to just drain the energy out of everybody in the colony, and power themselves up, which basically means that fighting them equals just murdering everybody. You can't, like, that's a pretty indestructible defense that they have there. The fact that they can just use everybody as a meat shield. As extra hit points. So it makes it really hard for us who don't want to kill people. But yeah, no, it's interesting that can happen, and like we break through, and then we actually kill K straight up, which is crazy. Which I guess, to be fair, there's so many of these fellas that I guess at some point we're just gonna have to start murking them. Like, we just have to start bumping people off the list, even if they're not considerable. Honestly, these Mobius guys are really funny. This is all of them have like great lines. The attitude, the energy they have is just great. Your intuition is shit. Oh, another thing about K that's interesting is that he changed into his Mobius form without fusing, and that's something I brought up earlier. That when we first see Wild Ride, D is fused with somebody else, and you see the two Ouroboros symbols, not the Ouroboros, the two infinity symbols in their chests, which is like double the Ouroboros symbol, which is just the one thing here, right? And that's interesting, because it shows that they don't need to have a union of two things. And like something that is brought up by Takahashi, again in the interview, is that like the Xeno in all of his games means foreign, right? Like xenophobia, that kind of thing. And like a lot of the games are about the themes of like two foreign things colliding and like learning to live alongside each other, which is very, very present here. Like more so than anything else, I think, in the Xenoblade series. Very much present here. But it's interesting that the villains don't have to do that. They can fuse with people that they know, and they also can just become powerful on their own. They don't have to agree with other people. And they seem to all be after, like, infinite life, right? That seems to be their thing. Because we kill K, and he take off his mask, and he turns out to be some old dude. We don't know who this old dude is. He doesn't look familiar to me. But, you know, old dude. I think that scene also in general is just really good to show off Noah's convictions. The fact that he's willing to break the flame clock just to protect our lives. And make that risk, even though he doesn't want to kill anybody. It's just a very interesting dichotomy there, that he's willing to push himself through it anyways. Because I feel like Rex wouldn't have done that. Rex is the kind of dude who is like... Rex is the kind of dude who would be like, nah, I'm gonna do both. We're gonna succeed anyways. And then you have a rude awakening call in the dark game. But like, here, like, we really acknowledge that possibility, but still have to go through with it anyways. Like, we decide to go through with it anyways, knowing that we could kill everybody here, you know? And I think that really works because these characters are not opposed, or like they're opposed. They're just not unfamiliar with the act of murder. Like, to kill somebody is something that they are accustomed to. So, like, it's something that they're willing to consider on a consistent basis, and also they can weigh the risks of these kinds of things. It's just very interesting, and I think like this game has been doing a really good job so far of connecting themes of the story with gameplay. Because then you really see that also. Like, everybody's military trained, and that's why their chain attacks have all these, like, crazy, like, tactics that they can use, right? There's the Ouroboros that shows, like, their connections, and that's a whole gameplay mechanic of itself. There's the off-seeing, where you can literally send off people and get affinity towards whatever faction they happen to belong to. It's just good, you know? Good gameplay and story integration. Also... Okay, something I really find funny. We're talking about mechanics. I love the fact that the flame clock is a fake mechanic. They actually implemented a fake mechanic for the majority of Chapter 1, where you can fill up the flame clock, and if it gets low, your stats will be worse, and if it's really high, your stats will be better. But then immediately, as soon as you get Ouroboros, that mechanic disappears and never comes back, so far as I can see. That's really funny. They actually implemented a fake mechanic that's almost impossible to mess up. That's crazy. Because, like, it drains so slow. And, like, it fills up super slow, too. So it's literally just there for appearances. That's fantastic. And I don't think it's gonna come back, honestly. Anyways, the chapter pretty much ends, like, with everybody, like, questioning about the councils. Like, Taion specifically brings up the fact that, like, the councils could be the same between the two nations. And, like, they're really starting to think into it. I like the fact that this party really is, like discussing some of this stuff. And, like, really looking into this stuff. It feels like this party's smarter overall, and they're not so driven towards a certain... Like, we're driven towards a goal, but it's not like our goal doesn't align with figuring out what's going on, you know? Figuring out what's going on is very much along with our like, the whole motivation for going to Sword March, right? A land pierced by a great sword. Like, the reason why we're doing that is to figure out how things are going. So we question that along the way, and it's more of a focus. Meanwhile, in Xenoblade 1, like, there was a revenge plot thing that kind of took over things. Or Xenoblade 2, just get to Elysium. It doesn't really matter the other steps to get there, right? Until it becomes really relevant to question things even more. But then there's also the conflicting motivations, right? It's not until, like, these two things can't work without each other that, like, you have that turning point where you really figure out what's going on. But this game seems to be just doing that off rip because of the way these characters are. In any case, also, I don't know what to say about the queens of each nation. We know who they are, most likely. Like, it's most definitely Melia and Nia, right? But, like, I don't know why they're working this way. We don't know if they're in on it. We don't know if they're brainwashed or, like, deceived the same way everybody else is, or, like, they're in some sort of situation where they feel they need to do this, or if they're just straight up evil. Now, who knows? Like, it feels a little weird for those characters to change as far as they have, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, it's kind of ambiguous. We know that they want Ouroboros gone, but, like, why? And also, like, I feel like they're not the main antagonists either. Like, they're just kind of there. Like, they're kind of a mystery at the moment, and I like that. But the console, aka Mobius, are, like, the main villains, and I would assume Z is the actual main antagonist. Which, by the way, the fact that his name is Z, you know, like, Zanza. It's a little concerning. I don't know. I'm a little in the dark at the moment. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say so far. We got to the end of chapter 2. That's my first impressions, everything I've had to think about it so far. Please, if you want to share your own impressions about the first 2 chapters, feel free to leave a comment. But do not spoil, please, or I will shoot your ass. I will permanently ban you from my chat. I do not care. Do not spoil this for me. I swear to God. Be cool. Anyways, we'll come back once I'm finished chapter 3, and I'll record another one of these and put it out. In fact, it's very possible that by the time this one comes out, I've already finished chapter 3 and made a reflection about that as well. I just wanted to be able to get my thoughts out on it while, you know, the sun's still out, which is ironic because I'm recording this at 3:55 at night. Well, I guess in the morning, right? Anyways, it's been an hour and 30 minutes. Thank you for your time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you're enjoying this game. And yeah. Ciao.